Hi everybody. Today we're going to talk about crutches. The reason that I came up with this subject is because last week I was the victim of a little mishap in the garage, and now I am finding it necessary to use them. So, you know me, I'm always coming up with messages from Spirit based on life experiences. And I thought that today it would be a good thing to talk about the things that we depend upon. Crutches are objects that help us to cope with life when we find ourselves lacking in some way. So what are some things that we could consider to be crutches besides actual real life crutches? Obviously we have the real ones. Whenever we have an injury, a physical injury, we might need crutches to help us get around, and that is to make up for an injury that we have. And we have crutches that we use in our lives to help us with other things in life, whether it's physical things or spiritual, emotional things. And what are some of the crutches that we might use? One crutch that we could consider to be a good crutch is a belief system. So if we come into life and we are trying to make it all on our own, we find that we don't have enough power within ourselves to live a life free from outside help. So a belief system is one in which we are accessing a power that is greater than ourselves to live our lives in a more empowered way. I've talked about that in a previous video. You might check out some of the other ones that I've done, but that's just one example of a good crutch. Another example of a crutch would be maybe friends and family. For example, when I had my injury, I needed someone to assist me until I could get to the doctor, until I could make it home. I can't drive for a while, so I need people to drive me around. I'm having trouble doing regular tasks that I used to do with ease. And so I'm very dependent now on people in my life to get me here and there, to get me a glass of water sometimes, or to do things that I normally would have been able to do on my own. So in our life, we will find friends and family coming to our aid when we're unable to take care of ourselves due to whatever. If it's an emotional issue or an actual physical issue, we depend upon friends and family. That is kind of a crutch that we can say that we use, and that's a good one. So another crutch that we might have in our life is expertise. So if we find ourselves lacking in some way, we are going to need to access help from someone who knows more about a specific subject than we do. For example, in my work, I need to employ the help of people that are more knowledgeable than I am on things like technology, on things like marketing, and for example, my upcoming book. I'll need somebody to do the things having to do with the book that I have no knowledge of. So expertise is another area which is a crutch that we might use. That's a good example of a crutch. When might these things not be good? So anytime we have a crutch, for example, these actual crutches that I have, if I find myself depending on them too much, then I am going to become dependent on the crutch and not work on strengthening that part of my body that was injured. And so when we have something in our life that is helping us and assisting us, we might find that we become dependent on that crutch. And that's when it becomes not so positive. So think about in your life, what areas of your life are you dependent on someone else or something else to give you a sense of empowerment? And even though that might be okay for a while you get on your feet, it's not good long term. It's not good to become addicted to the help of, say, for example, substances, different things like drugs and alcohol. We might become dependent on them, or even medication that was prescribed by a doctor. But when the course of time comes, when you're supposed to be done with it, you find yourself unable to function properly without those things. That's when it becomes a little unhealthy. So anything that is good can become not so beneficial if it's used too much, or if it keeps you from trying to function and live your life on your own, empowering yourself. Another thing that we might use a crutch for that is not so healthy is if we want to use it to escape reality. So sometimes we'll use crutches in our life because we just can't face life the way it is. And so we might live in a fantasy world, or we might become dependent on even the stuff that I do, using a psychic or a medium too much, because you can't cope with life on your own, or you can't make decisions on your own. Even using a belief system too much. I remember years ago in my former belief system, a lot of people had the habit of not even going to buy a car unless they went to the people in the church that were in charge and asking them if God was okay with it. And so they were giving over their lives to something outside of themselves to make small decisions that they should have been able to make on their own. And so that's when it becomes a little unhealthy. When you give over your life to something outside of yourself that begins to run your life or control you, then it becomes unhealthy. And another negative use of crutches is if you use crutches as an excuse not to improve yourself. So for example, if I continue to use these crutches and I'm not trying to strengthen my knee that I injured, and I'm not doing anything to help myself or practice getting better or give my muscles a chance to work on their own, then that would be a negative thing. That would be a non-beneficial thing for me. And look in your life and see, where are you using a crutch as an excuse not to improve yourself or not to make your life better on your own? Are you dependent on a person to make all your decisions for you? Are you dependent on other people or a belief system to do the things or tell you what to do or live your life in a certain way instead of making those decisions for yourself? So what can we learn from this little chat today? We all find ourselves in times in our lives when we need a crutch for whatever reason. We might need a belief system to help us to find out who we are. We might need, and I'm not saying that belief systems aren't good, but when we need them too much and we can't make simple decisions on our own, then it becomes a crutch. When we find ourselves in a temporary setback and we begin to depend on others for help, that's okay temporarily. But we need to really come to the place where we can depend upon ourselves, access the guidance that we have within our own soul, and be able to improve our lives on our own and function as a soul in the earth realm on our own, doing things that we need to do to make our lives well, improving our life, maybe educating ourselves, maybe getting a second job if we can't just make the ends meet. Whatever it takes to create a sense that we are creating our lives ourselves, and that we're not giving our power over to other people or to whatever we have in our life that we could say is a crutch. Crutches are designed to help you move forward. They are not meant to be a long-term solution to a short-term problem. It's really important that you examine your life and decide, what do you need to move forward? And take steps every day to improve your life, to accomplish your goals, and eventually get rid of the crutches. Have a great day.